everybody, and we are filming live. At least the recording is happening in live real time. Not that this is actually a live recording. This is Gino from Above Spirituality, episode 17, season 2. I am here with my good friend DJ BigHeart.
Hey.
Yeah, spiritual citizen from Chicago, amazing DJ, stylish dancer.
Thank you.
Now, BigHeart, we met at the ecstatic dance community, and it's interesting because I've had a lot of our friends from that on the show. In fact, even shout out to Nils, obviously, and our friend Gigi, who'll be on next episode. Though I don't know if she does dance. I mean, she's a friend of another person in the ecstatic dance community. It's quite a thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's become a thing.
Yeah. Now it's interesting because it's something I've been mentioning on the show a lot. We've had our friends, Luke. We had Luke Lindstrom. We had David Prorak, Shruti. I'm gonna be so remiss if Sasha. Yeah, we had. We got a real fan on the show today. So we've had all these people, and it's really so amazing because this particular practice or community, it really draws people from all across the board. You yourself, one question I want to ask you before we really dive into how I want to look at this with you tonight, DJ BigHeart, is would you call ecstatic dance like a spiritual experience, a spiritual practice?
It can be. I think it naturally is, and most people that go to these dances are coming for some spiritual experience.
Yeah, that's usually how I describe it too, is that like you definitely don't have to be some sort of spiritual type person to get a lot out of it, though just most people who go there are. Tell us a little bit about how you're involved with it, and if you're comfortable sharing like how you even came to it, because I know it's quite the story.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So I found ecstatic dance 8 years ago. At that time, I was at the end of my rope, I would say. Chronic debilitating physical pain for several years. Really nowhere to turn, and modern medical system really had nothing left for me. And I think I actually originally started meditating every morning consistently for a month, and what I noticed is things started to get very weird and different, and I started doing things that made me feel uncomfortable. And dancing with a bunch of strangers I don't know was something like it was really uncomfortable for me. So I basically found ecstatic dance.
It's so funny you put it that way because at one level that like is what ecstatic dance is.
Yes.
Except that it doesn't really capture like the specific way people kind of dance ecstatically. It's not like, it's not like any ballroom dancing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really. There are guidelines to the dance, but it's not a structured dance. And even trying to tell people like what this is kind of almost like just impossible. It's something that they honestly, I think, have to experience.
Oh, I've been trying to get Nils to come. I'm sure he will one day, and it'll probably be a very out of his comfort zone kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think one of the things that it's helped me with myself is being authentic and being vulnerable, and it's taken me a while of 8 years of dancing to now like do something like this. I would never do something like this my past self, but even like coming into this there's some anxiety of like sitting in front of a camera, but what I've found is like doing these things that scare me really helps me grow and evolve as a person.
Yeah, I'm kind of a big believer that our souls really flourish through a large variety of experiences, like having a large variety of experiences. And I don't really think that's like necessary for every person, or if you believe in stuff like reincarnation, that like every life has to be that way. I mean, I've had like past life readings where they were like, yeah, you were just like such a dedicated Confucian scholar, you would not talk to other people who weren't like the same kind of Confucian scholar unless you were like teaching them how to live. And I'm sure a lot can be gained out of that. But it really helps us to expand and even to like soar when we move past our discomforts.
Totally agree.
And I think it's so incredible how this practice, this community helped you to move past probably the greatest discomfort of your life, which was the pain. Were you like diagnosed with like chronic fatigue syndrome or something like that?
Um, they actually didn't really know what was wrong. I do think that just like looking at it, I think that it's very much something that my higher self created so that I could wake up. Because without the suffering, without the pain, there's no way I would have woken up. I needed the pain, and there's a reason why every doctor I had seen and all the things, all the procedures I had, um, really like didn't help me, because it wasn't something from like a 3D pain. It was something that I needed to go through to get to where I am now.
I vibe with that so much because I've met several people, in my own spiritual journey who had a similar experience. I volunteer teach over at a place called the School of Metaphysics, and one of my first ever like students was this awesome guy Stu. I really hope to have him on the show one day, and yeah, he even to this day had that same thing, like chronic pain syndrome, no explanation. You go to, I'm sure you've been to over like 30 different doctors or like modalities, and like, yeah, it helps a little, but like, it doesn't solve it. And he was the same way. I was like, okay, done everything else. Like, I'll try God, I'll try anything at this point.
Yeah, I think for me, what was happening in the dances is I was also really scared I was going to be in pain. I was, kind of at that point in my life, like I couldn't dance. I couldn't move a lot. Um, One of the things that my brain was telling me is movement was actually the last thing. I would come home and I would just lay
Oh,
flat.
totally. I mean, that makes sense.
And so me actually dancing through my pain and was channeling during these dances, saying you're going to be okay, you're going to be out of pain, you're actually going to heal yourself. And so each dance I would do that, and what I noticed is I actually wasn't in pain the next day, and I actually felt better because of the release that was actually happening in these dances.
Now, that's something that I've mentioned a couple times on the show, and I talk about it pretty vocally whenever I'm at like altar or somewhere, is that um, a lot of release can come out like during these things. My experience was like the first time I went, I was with Matt over at a CBC event, and that was actually almost painful just because like I'm dancing with these people, and with that's contact dance. I'm looking at these women in their eye, dancing with these men, and just like the amount of connection like was so beautiful. I almost like it hurt. Um, and then I kept going to altar, and like I was still kind of processing like a breakup with someone I very much loved, and it was just like so much sadness and like jealousy and all these things would come up. Like I'd have to go sit down, and in time, I kept showing up, and eventually, like you really do start to understand what's even meant by release. We carry so much.
Yeah, I think ecstatic dance. I think what it offers, because again, there's no way to do it. There's obviously guidelines to keep a safe container, but when you go in there, it's a time for you to have whatever experience you want, whether that's laughing or screaming or crying, whatever experience that you're feeling called to share in a non-judgmental space. that's the place to go and do it. And I don't know that there's a lot of spaces that I feel that I can actually go and then do that. And I can embody my full authentic self and express myself and express my emotions, and to have people witness that and not judge it.
Well, I really loved how you said the witnessing part. And I'm going to say that in a second, but I want to make a dumb joke, which is that, you do that in Target and they generally kick you out, they kick you out of the Target. You start crying and, you dance through the aisles. They're like, this guy's got to go. But, I was last night, I had gone out with some friends. My friend owns a yoga studio, and she was having like a little members thing, and I was so glad she invited me because I really wanted to be in some more feminine energy, and I was the only boy there, and it was very nice. But I came home, and my heart was hurting a bit because I felt guilty that I kind of put off my dad who wanted to hang out because I kind of wanted to be around some women, and then I just felt some insecure because I desire to be connected with women and stuff like that, and so it brought up some stuff. And I chose to spend I think it was 30 or 40 minutes dancing, and it was interesting to me that I didn't process as much in the dance, and I think that's because other people weren't there.
Yeah, please. I actually want to tell me more about that.
Yeah. I started the dance, which I thought was going to be very joyful because I came home and I'm like, I just had this nice friendly experience with some friends. We were all just chilling. And I started dancing. I just made this new playlist. Check out DJ BigHeart for his playlists. Oh my God. We were just Sunday. We had such a good time. But anyway, and I started quickly getting really heavy and insecure. My body didn't want to flow as much as it usually does, and it didn't want to make as big of movements. It didn't want to move around as much, and that's kind of something I'm familiar with getting heavy and dancing through it. But I didn't really ever start losing the heaviness, which I'm less used to. And I remember I even had to, after I finished, I went and I sat in meditation, and I was doing some more somatic practices, if you know what somatic experiencing was. And that was helping, but by the time I went to bed, I was miserable. And my dreams were powerful, but kind of dark.
Yeah, so a lot of people tell me, 'cause other than the fact that I'm a DJ, I'm also naturally a dancer. And what a lot of people tell me is I tend to dance in my feminine, and I'm a large man.
If you couldn't tell, DJ BigHeart for a reason,
And dancing within my feminine has been so healing for me, and has allowed me to again be witnessed by others. And what I've noticed is that's allowed me to be more vulnerable with others. And that's allowed me to be more authentic in my relationships because it cuts through some of my insecurities about myself. And so these practices can be very powerful because for me, they've been able to really open me up to all of my insecurities and to show others my insecurities, and then they show them to me during the dance. So I'm vulnerable with them, they're vulnerable with me, and then we're all healing together.
That really inspires me to take more time to watch others while I'm dancing, because I definitely am no stranger to doing this practice and then having this fun and feeling super insecure. But yeah, to think of it as we're all showing each other, that is really powerful. Men often don't get to have a safe place to experience the feminine, and depending on how you interpret Christianity, you think of the book of Genesis, it says male and female I created them. So you could look at that as the Lord, whatever that is to you, gave us both feminine and masculine traits. Now, question I have for you is, do you think that it's the do you think that it's you just get comfortable with the insecurities and the vulnerabilities and that's why they lose their power, or if like the practice kind of like drains some sort of juice that these things have in the mind, if you're picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, I think, for me, it's been an evolution. When I first found ecstatic dance, um, it was the place I woke up. So it was a very sacred, it always will be a sacred process for me. And it's honestly why I'm here, is to share the gospel of ecstatic dance.
Heck yeah. Fuck yeah, dude.
uh, to others, but it's been an evolution for over 8 years. I would say the first few years, I would most days I was dancing, I'd be having my eyes closed in the corner, really kind of freaked out. And then it's been an evolution, and even there's been a new evolution, I would say, the last few years of finding contact beyond contact with Matthew Stakowitz.
Got to get him on the show eventually, but that's neither here nor there.
One of my good friends. I started, I've been doing this dance for so long, but I actually did not do any type of touch dancing. And I typically didn't dance with a lot of people because it wasn't my thing. And having contact beyond contact and having platonic, non-sexual, consensual touch with men and women has been life-changing for me and many others. And so it's almost like there's been different layers to the evolution, and kind of here we are.
So there's that opens me up to so many follow-ups, but one of the first, I'm going to ask one of the first ones because there was something a little more, just something that's been on my mind is, especially when you do contact dance, and you dance with someone of the opposite gender or even of the same gender if, that's the way you swing. It's such a physically intimate process. What are your thoughts on even if if a sexuality does arise within you, obviously you have to be responsible enough that if it does, you contain that and you don't put that on someone who's maybe not into it. But, as with many feelings that arise in the body, I didn't necessarily choose for that to happen to me. That's just how I reacted. What are your thoughts on that element of, that might be someone's experience?
Yeah, this is something that we talk about quite often in ecstatic dance and contact beyond contact dance. There is naturally going to be some type of release of sexual energy during these dances. But to remind you that these dances are genderless dances.
Yeah.
And it's not about hooking up, and it's not about sex, but yeah, naturally there can be a sexual energy that's released. And so basically what we typically ask is dance with it, and feel the energy and dance with the energy. And if it's unable to be dissipated, you can always leave the dance, or you can go to the corner and dance. But you can actually transcend that sexual energy and work with it and dance with it.
So I want to keep going on that because that is the experience of having something come up in you that's a powerful feeling, whether it happens to be that particular thing or, frankly, for me, a lot, it just comes up these powerful sadnesses or oftentimes jealousies or insecurity is obviously one. You're dancing in a room with people that that can come up in a number of ways, from being insecure about oh, they're dancing together, I want to do that, or oh, this guy's a better dancer than me, or oh, does everyone think I'm a freak or something? Which no, nobody thinks that. Ecstatic dance, we're all freaks if we go, in the best way possible. But yeah, it was, I'm really looking for more insight on how you do these transcending things, because I'm getting more comfortable with these powerful sides of myself that, you usually hide. even in like our private life, we just push that down. And I'm really seeking that transcendence, and I really do believe it's something in the dance. So like, what are your insights on how you process the feelings and like let them move on to whatever they can become?
So emotions are contagious, and collective energy is also contagious. And so, if you're having an experience, whether that's like sadness or joy, any experience, that actually can be felt by others within a dance, but they could be having a completely opposite experience than you're actually having. And getting a group of people collectively dancing and in sort of what we call a trance that naturally happens in ecstatic dance because of the way that typically the music goes tends to start out slow and it goes up, and then there's this chaos, and then it comes
I
down.
love the chaos. I mean, I love the slow stuff too, but I'm please continue.
Yeah, I feel like you actually need the slow stuff to get the chaos. And a lot of people,
Yeah.
I feel like they need to be able to kind of lubricate themselves into all of that to let themselves go, especially kind of people newer to the dance. But we're going through different states of consciousness through this music. And it's if you can tap into it, you can experience all these different states of consciousness that can be unique just for you.
So then, do you think, like, tell me what you think about this? Is it like that you should just, like you say, dance through anything that comes up, like just experience it? Because I often know when something comes up that's powerful or uncomfortable, my mind tries to like fix it or try to get out of it. And is it maybe better to just like observe it and even really go into it and just does that process it? Like, I'm really trying to get what you have, if you know what I mean. Like, I want to know how you really get the most out of ecstatic dance because that's something, frankly, very relevant to my interests.
There's several dances that I could not drop in, and so that's just normal. And there are several dances that maybe I'm tired and maybe I'm just laying on the floor the whole time that I'm like my body's tired. So I would say what I have tried to do is just listening to my body. So if my body's telling me to rest, to rest. If it's telling me to dance, to dance. If it's telling me to go in the back and talk to my friends, I talk to my friends. And I guess not resisting whatever process is happening, because you know what? There's just going to be another dance. Especially in Chicago, there's dances all the time now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now it's like it's really popping off.
So trying not to get caught up in what experience I'm going to have or I'm not going to have. There's plenty of dances that I don't like. That's part of my medicine. There's plenty of songs I don't like. There's plenty of songs that I have friends that say they don't like those songs. That's also part of their medicine to work through and to invite all of that and dance through it.
So then, to really get the most, would you say that to really get the most out of ecstatic dance, you just have to really tune into whatever's happening with no expectations and or would you recommend while you're doing it, if like say a certain energy comes up, that you try to work with it, or is the working really just dancing it fully?
I think that there's really no goal. Um, Basically, the journey is the journey, and there's no real end result. And so, focusing on having this is one of the things that we've talked about. I was asked this last month in a dance by someone new to ecstatic dance. They asked me, "Why is it called ecstatic dance?" And I actually wasn't sure actually how to answer that question. And a good friend of mine who's also a ecstatic dance DJ said that she actually hated that word, that she felt that it was telling people that they needed to have an ecstatic response during the dance, that they needed to have a certain experience. Whereas I feel like that's actually not the goal or intention of the dance. The intention of the dance is to come in This typically is an intention, or you set an intention, where you come into the dance, and that whatever comes up, then you deal with it and you work through it.
So again, I might drill you on this because I'm the kind of when I practice within my own mind, I love to know the mechanics of what you do in a spiritual practice, even if the mechanic is just super Buddhist, where it's like, yeah, you watch it, like you're just mindful of it. Because over at my school of metaphysics, we're very big into, you want to observe the mind, allow the mind, but if you notice things like a thought form that's not serving you, pick new thoughts. Or if there's like a feeling, a lot of practitioners will say, hey, if there's a feeling you don't like, you're going into a negative energy space, still your mind, use your will to put your attention on something else. And I definitely know that works for people and it can be powerful. But I know there's this whole other way where it's just like, yeah, you just allow anything that comes up. So when you say to work on it, like as it comes up, do you advise being like super mindful and in a way passive? Or would you say, there's something you want to do within your head and your heart?
Yeah, actually, don't advise anything.
Okay, so we're going the Buddhist approach. Just to put words in your mouth, which is not, I'm just joking.
Yeah,
I'm no expert on Buddhism. I just talk about them a lot.
yeah, I've done that. I don't know how many ecstatic dances, maybe 600 or 700, and each one of them has been different, and also each one of them has been a miracle within themselves, and yeah, I advise to that I have no advice for you.
Right on. How are we doing on time, by the way, Nils? 27. Okay, so we'll go a bit longer. No, that does actually answer it. And I was suspecting that was what's to be done because I really feel like, I feel like maybe you might do some things with like, inwardly that you could say are a little more like aggressive or like yang type of energy, like you're directing it a bit. Yet I have been finding that the more I do stuff like that, the more it builds up too much and becomes, because now you're in this fight to change something that, frankly, you didn't want to experience. And what I've been finding is that as I tap into more like a feminine, a kind of a yin, or at my school, we like to say a receptive, you just allow it and observe it. What I've been noticing is, yeah, I feel a lot more stuff, and a lot of that stuff I whine about, but but overall, I've been having this experience similar to you where I do feel more authentic. I feel like I can express myself better. I am getting a bit better at processing through these heavy emotions. Like they don't last as long, although sometimes they really hit the crap out of you. And well, it should go without saying too, I feel so much more in my body and that like I can dance almost whenever. What do you think is like the mind, like even outside of dance, like what do you think is the mind body connection? Or maybe like the mind body spirit connection? Can I just ask you something open ended like that?
Yeah, sure. So, your question is mind, body, spirit connection.
Yeah. What do you think that is? Like, what do you see in it, or what is that to you? This sort of getting in your body and like how that relates to your mind and spirit. I talk a lot, so and I've drunk a bunch of coffee, so.
So, when I found ecstatic dance, there's something that happened to me that I really cannot explain. There was it was an old house that I was dancing in Florida, and at the center of the house there was a circular structure that used to be a fireplace that the person who owned it had sealed it, and there was this, so now it's just this weird circle that was out of place. And during this dance, there was this Rufus the Soul song that played called Inner Bloom. I'd never heard this song before. And during the middle of that song, I felt an energy come from the tips of my toes on up to my crown chakra. I felt this explosion, and I screamed like the loudest I've ever screamed in front of all these strangers. And I can't really describe what happened to me, but what I feel like happened is that I went out of my body and I connected with my higher self. So I feel like I kind of had some sort of transcendence between my mind, my body, and my spirit, and that changed my life because I had never experienced something like that. I never thought that could actually be something possible, and I actually didn't try to do that. It literally just happened.
Yeah, yeah. Oftentimes, a lot of, I think, good spiritual wisdom for the audience is that, like, you do practices like any spiritual practice. You increase the likelihood that spontaneously you might have one of these life-changing experiences. Sadly, or maybe not sadly, but the truth is many spiritual practitioners may never have that in this life. And a big thing is you can't cause it to happen. In fact, I mean, there's good advice, especially in the Kundalini yoga community, that like if you try to force these things, then a very wholesome, life-changing experience can actually be life-changing in a bad way. But that is so excellent to me. That sounds almost like a Kundalini Shakti kind of experience, if you've heard those terms.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. What I can tell you is that everything was different after that point, and I felt like I had found something first that I could not describe, and then I wanted more of.
Yeah.
And that became my obsession with ecstatic dance, and so I was there every week dancing, and to the point that years later, then I was starting to host dances and DJ dances. Yeah, it did kind of shook me in some way that I still don't really understand.
I think what a lot of American spiritual people are starting to understand is that obviously at some level the goal of spiritual practice is, for many people, is to transcend the physical or reach some higher place and go beyond the body and human bullshit. But what we're coming to understand is that you often attain those experiences by deeply connecting to the body. And I think we were not misinformed, but I think we had a very different attitude for a while, because in some ways that's maybe like a more or less kind of Eastern, or like maybe you could kind of blanket say like a Buddhist thing, that like, you don't really, you try to transcend that thing and like deny it, which frankly is probably a misunderstanding. That was just some person like telephoning, what the Buddha said like 20,000 times. But yeah, like through the body, Eckhart Tolle talks about that is like the portal to a higher place. Before we end, I would love, for sure, one other question. If there's someone new who wants to try this out in their city or in Chicago, how would you recommend, and you've kind of already said it, but give your best advice for, how should they get started, or when they show up, like just any sort of advice?
So the question is basically, how do we get started to just go to an ecstatic dance?
Yeah, and then when you get there, like maybe what are some best practices you could say?
Yeah, so it's probably going to be uncomfortable, and it's probably going to be an experience that you're maybe just not used to. And so dance with that, and maybe visualizing ahead of time that process, and maybe sitting down and thinking about how that process can be, and maybe dancing in your apartment or your home to get prepared. But you can go to a dance and just not dance. You can go there and just be a witness.
Katie's famous story.
Please tell me the story.
Well, Katie, she always says like the first dance she went to, Katie Janeko, she's always like, yeah, I'll let her tell the story when she eventually gets on the show. But please continue if I interrupted.
Yeah, so I'm not actually advising you to go to an ecstatic dance. I can just tell you that it's been something that has been really healing for me and many others. And so if it's something that you're feeling called to do, um, there are several like ways to get out there and to dance, and it can change your life. It's changed my life. It's changed the lives of many others. It might not actually even do anything for you, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I think if I could throw some advice out there, someone who's not nearly as experienced as you, DJ Big Heart, you this isn't everyone's experience, but many people say like you're gonna feel a lot, and that might be. And I don't want to just make this blanket statement, but especially for guys, that might be very different. And I'm sure for a lot of women, that might be very different. So just know that that's okay. That's part of the process. For many people, not everyone. Before we sign off, I feel like you might have already done it, but if there's any last thing you would like to say, just as like a why to maybe consider ecstatic dancing. If there's anything that wants to come out of your very big heart and you want to share with the audience, this would be your time. Or if you feel comfortable. And
Yeah, I actually feel complete. Thank you.
I love that. I say that. We say that at my school. It's like when you're done talking, like, I'm complete. Or if you don't want to receive anything. Okay, well then, plug your shit, DJ Big Heart. What are you doing what are you doing in the near future? How can the audience learn more about the stuff you do or any social media you have?
Oh, thank you.
We'll link it also.
Yeah, and so I think one thing I want everybody to know that this is not a job for me. This is not a career for me. This is part of my seva. So it's part of my selfless service to humanity. I expect nothing for it, and I want nothing for it. And all I want to do is share the gospel of ecstatic dance. So following me, I have public pages for just go DJ Big Heart for Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me there, and then you can find out when I'm doing dances. I do dances quite often. Thank you.
And I will say, I was just at a dance that the big DJ did on Sunday last week, and oh my God, the set was like ridiculous. I was almost crying at one point, and yeah, it was such a fun mix of like some pop, some almost like more tribal things, and then some dirty shit. And I love hearing that. Sometimes that's my one criticism with some of our DJs is that they get afraid of that dirty EDM, and I want that, but that's more of a me thing. DJ Big Heart, I'm so happy to have you on the show and to continue to make a friendship with you. So thank you for your time, and that's it for episode 17.
Thank you, brother.